Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each week on the Dr. Diane Show, we will have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, soul purpose, all to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I've been studying successful people for years in all areas of life: career, entrepreneurism, health and performance, relationships, spiritual, personal development. And I found that they all have the same 5 characteristics that I believe are essential to making transformational change in your life. And I call this the SPARK method. And it stands for self-confidence, passion and purpose, action, resilience, and kindness. And I started developing these 5 characteristics in myself. I've always been pretty self-confident, but I continued to push myself to keep doing things that were out of my comfort zone, both physically and mentally, like traveling alone, rock climbing, doing silent retreats. I spent a year on a passion quest where I critically studied all of my strengths, values, past experiences, things I was extremely passionate about, to figure out what I wanted in my life or my career or a relationship, even in day-to-day life. What were the things that brought me joy and that I loved and that I was excited to get out of bed every day and do. And I thought about what was it that I couldn't not do. Now that's a double negative, but what was it that I would, at the end of my life, regret having not done? I started meditating and really giving myself time to figure out exactly what work I was meant to do in this lifetime. I worked with, and I still work with, life and business coaches to help me maintain my focus and drive to pursue my ambitions. I surround myself with positive people who are on the same journey that I am. I built my resilience by realizing that failure is a positive thing. And if you're not failing, then your goals and dreams just honestly aren't big enough. That was a tough one to learn. In order to succeed, honestly, you have to fail. And I gave myself permission to do that and to make mistakes as long as I was willing to keep trying. And I promised myself not to take any rejection personally. And I implemented a gratitude practice. I tried to find one thing every day that I was grateful for or thankful for. And I learned to forgive myself and others when I made mistakes or other people made mistakes. I successfully ended an 8-year marriage and a business partnership with my ex, and we're still friends. And I became kinder to myself. So these are all the ways that I try to emulate the SPARK method in my life, and certainly when I'm teaching other people, the things that I've done as well. A few weeks ago, I did a show talking about the first characteristic, which is self-confidence. And so today I wanted to discuss the second characteristic, the P, which is passion and purpose. And I'm extremely passionate, I'll use the same word, about this because honestly, I feel like all of the characteristics are important, um, but for different reasons. And some of them are there to keep you going. Some of them I think are the characteristics that keep people going when things don't go right in their world. Some characteristics are things that help you start things. Some are things that um, allow you to just be grateful and kind to yourself. And the passion, the purpose, I think, is one of the characteristics that really helps people obviously figure out why they're here. What is the, what is the meaning of their life? What is the big thing that they're here to do? Or even some of the little things. But it's what gets you out of bed every day. It's your why. And I wanted to just ask a bunch of questions and talk about that today to help people, if you're struggling with that, get closer to what that is. So, a question that I love to ask people is what what would you do if you only had 1 year to live? What would you do if you only had 1 year to live? And I think when you hear that question, I know the first time that I heard it when I was in my coaching program, like initially a whole bunch of things probably come to mind. Oh, I would travel to wherever, I would go to Africa and go on a safari, or I would go to Australia, or I would go to some place that, I've always wanted to go. And I think, yes, you're going to have those big, huge things that you would do if you only had 1 year to live. But I think you need to also think about the smaller things. Like, what would you do on a daily basis if you only had 1 year to live? And what would become the most important thing to you? Or another way to look at that is, what would you want to accomplish? What would you want to do in those last 365 days? Who would you spend your time with? And the reason why I thought about doing this show this week is I actually had an interesting conversation over the weekend with a friend of mine. It's actually my next door neighbor who I recently known him for a long time. We ended up having to move into the same condo complex together a year ago. So it's kind of funny because we had sort of lost touch. And he's writing a book about his life. And it's pretty amazing what he's gone through and just the resilience that he's had to have. And he honestly does exemplify every characteristic that in the word spark: self-confidence, passion, action, resilience, kindness, all of it. And it's been a work in progress for him, obviously, to do to have, to focus on all of those things. And but one of the things that I thought was really interesting about him is that in writing this autobiography, he has a bunch of questions that he asks in his book, and he talks about, what are the things that are really valuable to you? Do people do people even know? And he was asking me these questions over the weekend too. He said, Diane, do you think that everybody knows they have a purpose? That everybody, knows that they came here to do something? And I had to think about that question because part of me wants to say, when I look around at people in terms of like the jobs that they're doing or the relationships they're in, I see a lot of people that are really unhappy. And so I feel like, oh, they're not living their purpose. They're not passionate about what they're doing. They probably don't know their purpose. I think the answer is actually twofold. I actually believe that we all, maybe unconsciously for some of us, come here knowing that we have a purpose. Well, let me back up. My belief is that everybody who comes here has a purpose. The reason you come to this into this lifetime is because you have a purpose that only you can complete. And whether it's because you're going to change the world, or you're just here to learn something for your soul, or you could just have a small purpose, like you just came to raise a particular kind of family, or, help your family, or something small and seemingly insignificant, but not insignificant to you and your family. So I absolutely believe we all come here with a purpose. I also think that we all know we have a purpose, but we get caught up in things that we think are important to us. But if we were really given the time and the freedom, and what I mean by freedom is, if money wasn't an object, if we didn't have to work hard to pay bills, if we didn't have a lot of responsibilities, but if we had the freedom to really just take time to figure out what that was, I think we would all be able to get clarity and understand what our purpose is. And like I said, it doesn't have to be this huge, grandiose thing. I think that's one of the mistakes that we make, or the misleading things, is that we think we have to have this amazing, like, crazy purpose, like that's gonna, like I said, change the world. And I don't think that that's the case for everybody. Um, so that's how I answered his question. I was like, yeah, I think we all come here with a purpose. And I think that intuitively, innately, we all know what that purpose is, but I don't think a lot of us are tapped into it. Like consciously, I don't think a lot of us know what our purpose is. So what that's one of the things if I'm coaching someone, I always start with, like, what if you had 1 year to live? What would be the most important thing for you to accomplish, to do, to where would you go? Who would you spend your time with? What's the most valuable thing? And how many of you have actually contemplated that question? I mean, seriously contemplated it. And I don't know, like I said, that sometimes we don't give ourselves the freedom, or we don't have the freedom to really take the time to think about that. But I did it for a year. I actually wrote down 100 things to do before I die list, which I would recommend to everybody. And, you know, it's not something that you're necessarily going to do in an hour, in a day, in a weekend, in a week, even. I mean, I would take as much time as you need, take a year even to create this list and figure out what it is that you really want. And it'll be amazing. Like when you, when you start writing things down and just taking that space, I think you find out what's really valuable to you. And I think you also find out things that, wow, I didn't even realize that I wanted to do that. Like maybe you want to learn an instrument and you just never took the time to think about doing something like that. Or maybe it's popped up, but you've always put it aside saying, oh, I don't have the time. I'm too busy. I have too many responsibilities, all kinds of stuff like that, like learning new things, traveling, um, teaching, doing something different with the work that you do. It's pretty amazing when you actually take the time to write down, really think about, okay, if I only had a year to live, what would I do? Who would I be? What's valuable to me? And keep that list going. I mean, I still have that list actually. I keep referring back to it from time to time. But I would take some time, take a year, however long, to make that list, and it'll be amazing what comes up. So you're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll explore more about the Spark Method and finding your purpose. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is Dr. Diane Hayden. You are back on the Dr. Diane Show. But before we continue, I just want to make sure everyone knows how to reach out to me. You can find me at either www.drdianehayden.com, or I have two essential living publications. They're holistic lifestyle magazines, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. They serve the Connecticut and Southwest Florida markets, and they are two amazing resources for all different kinds of information, whether it be on natural medicine, how to treat chronic health issues with natural treatments, fitness, green living, organic products, spirituality, all kinds of good stuff. You can go check those two publications out, and the magazines are digital, and so you can download them as well, and find a ton of great information. So we are talking about the second characteristic of the Spark Method, which I call passion and or purpose. I kind of use those two words interchangeably. And we were talking about making 100 things to do before I die list. And as I said, I think it's a awesome exercise. I just feel like, in our crazy, busy, jam-packed lives, that so many of us are just going through the motions every day. And, we work because we have to, but we're really not that excited or passionate about our job anymore. And some people I literally, I know this is a strong word, but I actually have friends. I know people who would say that they hate their job. And I mean, for me, I know not everybody's willing to take risks like I take risks. I mean, I literally left jobs with no job waiting. I started a business with, like no money in the bank. I did some things that a lot of people just, wouldn't be willing to do. And I get that, it's not the life for everybody, that's for sure. But it just it just makes me so sad when people say like they hate their job. I just wish they would take the time to try to, figure out what they're passionate about, or take a chance on doing what their passion is. And it's not just work. I mean, I think this kind of boils over into all different areas of our lives. I think people are in relationships because they're comfortable and they're afraid to leave it because they don't think there's going to be anything better out there, even though their current relationship is not that satisfying. They have families, or even get married because that's what you're supposed to do after you go to school, go to college, get a job. They go, people go to religious services because they feel like that's what they should be doing, and they feel guilty if they don't, but they really don't have a spiritual practice. And probably my biggest pet peeve is exercise. People who go to the gym and get on the same machine, a few days a week, suffer through the same boring exercise, and they're just doing it because that's what they think they have to do because they want to lose weight, or, get into better shape, or whatever it is. So all these areas, I think, are areas that we can look at in our lives to say, you know, am I truly loving what I'm doing? Am I truly living my passion or my purpose in all these different areas? Because honestly, I think the most powerful weapon on earth is a human soul on fire with passion. You've seen, we all know people like that. It's a hardcore devotion to, to a cause or to their work, or even in a relationship. And it's desire, it's fire, it's this kind of indispensable virtue that is far more valuable than money or power or fame. And I think when you're around a passionate person, it inspires you to be more passionate, to figure out what it is that you're here for, what you love to do, what you're supposed to do, how you can, change the world, or at least just the world around you. And it gives people the courage, I think, when you see other people being passionate, the courage to take that first step, the strength to continue, the power to overcome obstacles. Passion has a strong relationship with perseverance, in that perseverance is the determination to move toward the achievement of a goal, and passion is the fuel that drives that. So I think the worst tragedy in the world is someone who has lost their passion. Think about people in your life, or even strangers that um, just are not passionate about their life anymore, and it's, for me, like I said, I mean, I think that's one of the worst things, is just to watch people go through their life, or through a relationship, or, whatever it might be, just living kind of half-heartedly, just kind of going through the motions. And I honestly think that that is sabotaging your spirit, and it can actually extinguish your life flame. I mean, literally, I look at some people that I know that are not passionate about what they do, and it's almost like their life force is diminished a little bit. It's like there's, kind of want to like shake them and say, "Hey, like, are you in there? What, come on, you're not living your purpose. You're not passionate about what you do. Don't you want to go out and find that?" I mean, it reminds me of the Talking Heads song where the guy is like wakes up, looks around, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. My God, what have I done?" And, literally, like, that was my life at one point. I was that person. And that's why I'm so passionate about talking about it, because I was able to recognize it. And I think, take the steps, take the risks to make some huge changes in my life. And yeah, it's not easy, and it's scary, and you got to be okay with not knowing what's going to happen, sometimes not having a plan, and just knowing that things are going to work out in your favor, because they always do. So, I mean, I was definitely in a place, probably 15 years, well, more than that, because I started the magazines 15 years ago. So I'm going to say maybe like 17 or 18 years ago, where I wasn't happy in my job. I wasn't happy in my relationship and just in general, in my life. And I kept, asking myself, like, how did I get here? How did this happen? How did I get so far away from, having passion and purpose and all of those things that I prided myself on, always having in my life. And, it's just kind of a crazy story, but I was l- going from one thing to the next in terms of like jobs or relationships from a career perspective. When I was a kid, I honestly had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I know there are people out there that, like, from the time they're very young, they know exactly what they want to do. And it always just amazes me that there are people like that, because I was not that person. I was, like, oh, I love working with animals, or maybe I want to travel, or, you know, who knows? It was like a million different things. So that being said, you can imagine when I went to college, it was pretty much like, well, let's see, I don't really know what I want to do. So my father was in marketing and sales, so I guess I'll do that. I'll go to business school. So honestly, I got my undergrads in marketing and got out of college, had, a couple years of just horrendous sales jobs, as you can imagine, somebody who's 22, 23, what kind of jobs they get, hated it. And that was probably the first time I started thinking about, well, what do I really love to do? And I had always been an avid exerciser. I had gotten into lifting weights when I was in my early 20s, um, was very healthy. And so I thought about, okay, so maybe I should get a career in, the health and fitness field. And I decided to go back to grad school for exercise physiology and loved it, like loved that program. Initially thought I was probably going to do something in fitness or the spa arena. And then through my master's program, I was doing a lot of teaching and ended up loving teaching. And so I ended up pursuing a doctorate so I could teach, and absolutely loved that. Got into teaching, got, hired as an assistant professor at a university here in Connecticut. And funny enough, after like 3 or 4 years of doing that, found myself kind of back in the same place, like just uninspired, bored, um, felt like I wasn't really making a difference. I was teaching a bunch of students that maybe, I'll say a quarter, that's probably generous. Maybe a quarter really wanted to be there. The rest were there because, their families were paying for their college education, and they probably, like me, weren't really sure what they wanted to do, and wound up in a physical education program. And so essentially, like, like me, I guess, were bored and whatnot. So that for me was just not fulfilling, teaching people that weren't, weren't loving, weren't passionate, weren't really interested in being there. And so I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And ended up going to work for a couple different nutritional supplement companies. That wasn't quite the right fit. And so finally thought to myself, I think I want to start my own business, because if if I'm going to really put my heart and soul into something and be passionate about it, I want I want a situation where I have control over it. I can work where I want to work when I want to work. And as those of you who are listening who are entrepreneurs know, you work way more than than being an employee. You're probably going from like a 40 to 50-hour work week to like a 70-hour work week, but at least it's working for yourself, and the only limits are the limits that you put on yourself. And so I ended up starting magazines, and that's kind of where we are today. So we're going to get into much more about passion and purpose. I want to talk a little bit about different exercises that I've come up with to help you find your purpose. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about finding your purpose. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today about my Spark method and finding your purpose. So I was just telling, this my sordid story of how I, you know, went to college without really having a purpose, really knowing what my purpose was, and not being sure what I wanted to do with my life, and going through a series of jobs, teaching college, working at a couple of nutritional supplement companies, and then ending up deciding that I wanted to start my own business. And um, it's funny because I've been publishing magazines for 15 years, and I can't say honestly that I have been 100% passionate about that business for all those 15 years. And I don't know if I'm going to say I think that's normal, actually. Um, I'm sure there are people out there that absolutely have loved every single day of every single year of however long they've been in their job or their career or the business that they started. I would say though that the majority of people that I have talked to, and it's within the field of natural medicine and holistic lifestyle. So most of them are practitioners, whether they're integrative physicians or naturopaths or anything related, massage therapy, fitness, you name it. I would say the majority, especially if they've been at it for, I'm going to say longer than 5, 6, 7 years, have definitely gone through periods of time where they were not passionate about what they were doing, where they had lost their spark, essentially. And I've had some pretty in-depth conversations with these people because for a while, I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, oh my God, okay, what I'm the common denominator here, right? Like I was seeing the same sort of similarities in my career as I was in my relationships. And I'm not to go down off a, onto a tangent with relationships, but essentially, I would be in relationships for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, get bored, and then end up ending the relationship. And at the time, I didn't really give it a lot of thought, but I would say, in the last 10 years or so, longer than that, obviously, because I've been in a relationship now for 10 years. And prior to that, I was married for 8. But I've given thought about, you know, is there something wrong with me because I, get bored of things, whether it's the relationship or a job or whatever? Do I rush into things too quickly without really thinking through if this is the right job for me or if this is the right relationship for me? How is it possible I could lose interest in something that I was so excited about after, a few short years? And then the question came to me, is it possible that in this lifetime, I'm not supposed to stay in one job or one career? And actually, I can't take credit for that. That was actually a question that was posed by a life coach. And that's what she said to me. Have you ever thought that maybe your purpose was to try a lot of things, to have, to sort of come into a job and put all of your heart and soul into it and make it something, and then kind of hand it off to somebody else, kind of be the visionary. Maybe your purpose is being a visionary. You're supposed to create things, get them started, and then someone else is supposed to take them over. You're not supposed to be doing the day-to-day things. And that was such an interesting question for me because I'd never looked at it that way. I was looking at it as, oh, there's something wrong with you because you're constantly, jumping from one thing to the next, whether it's you get bored of it or it's not challenging enough or it's too mundane or whatever, you decide, well, I'm not supposed to be doing this. I'm going to try something else. So I had to really think a lot about that. And I can tell you that question made me feel better. And I judge a lot of things. I'm guessing probably a lot of you do too who are listening. I judge a lot of things now, questions, let's say, or thoughts by the way they make me feel. Meaning that if I have a thought that doesn't make me feel good, I want to I want to look closer at that thought. I want to analyze that thought because from all the study I've done on mindset and thoughts and beliefs and psychology and all of that, what I keep reading or learning is that thoughts and beliefs that make you feel good are in alignment with who you are, with what your purpose is, with what your soul wants. Thoughts and beliefs and questions that don't make you feel good are not in alignment. And the questions, did I rush into things? How could I lose interest? Is there something wrong with me? None of those questions make me feel good. But the question, is it possible that I'm not supposed to be in one job or career? Like that feels freer to me. It opens things up for me. I felt like, oh, okay, that's definitely a more positive spin on it. It feels better. It's a question that feels better to me. And it's okay. And maybe that's what it really came down to, is just me realizing, you know, there are some people who come here who are meant to stay in the same job for 45 years. There are some people who are meant to stay in the same position for 20 years. There are some people who are maybe only meant to stay in the same job for 2 years or 1 year. Who knows? Like, who can really judge or say what it's supposed to be, you know? And so I really liked looking at it that way. Maybe my purpose is to be more of a visionary, to create things, not necessarily to stay in the same thing for forever. And I just think I mean, first of all, I'll tell you, I'm not sure I've still figured it out. Maybe I'll never figure it out. But I think it's important to, take the time to ask yourself those questions and ask them in a different way. If you're having a thought or asking a question of yourself and it doesn't feel good, it feels negative, it feels limiting, it feels judging, um, see if you can flip it and look at it in a different way. Ask that question in a different way. And I think that will help you get closer to understanding and learning what is your true purpose. What are you passionate about versus, judging that um, you're not doing the right thing. If if you know you're unhappy in a job, if you know you're unhappy in a relationship and you stay in it, then I think that's a situation where you're doing that out of fear of the unknown, fear of change, that kind of thing. Um, and you just need to figure out why. Don't stay in something because you think you're supposed to do that, because you think people will judge you if you don't stay. And I see a lot of this happening right now. Like, there are so many moving parts going on right now in our world, as far as people making changes and having to make hard decisions. Guy I know that's been an educator. He's been in education for 15 years, absolutely loves it, has decided that it's not in alignment for him to be forced into a mandate, and he's leaving. And I think that's another, like, amazing example of courage and staying true to your passion. His passion is education, but his passion is also about being in alignment with his body and what he feels is right. And so he's not, even though he loves the particular role in education that he's in right now, he's not going to stay in that. He's going to find another way to educate. But sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, maybe you love what you do, but you don't love who you work for anymore, or the company, or maybe the company's not in alignment with you anymore. And so maybe it's not about having to completely change your career. Maybe it's just about finding a different outlet for it. And I think, those are things that will come through if you take the time to write down, to go on a passion quest, to write down everything that you want to do. You'll find out. What for me, the thing that I learned was I saw a common thread of teaching. So whether I was even some people who are in sales will get this. To me, sales is about teaching. It's about educating people on why, you know, what you're selling will benefit them. Why do they need it? How's it going to help them? To me, that's teaching. So even in my early sales jobs, I was teaching. Then, of course, I was teaching at university. Then, when I worked for the supplement companies, I was the director of education. I was speaking and teaching. So when I took that year, to really write down what are all of my strengths and what do I value and what are things I'm good at and what am I passionate about? What do I want on a day to day basis? One of those similarities, commonalities that I saw clearly was teaching. So I'm like, okay, that's part of my purpose. I know that I'm here to teach and I feel like I'm doing it right now on the show. I'm teaching. And whatever I do, I have to make sure that I integrate that. I have to have an outlet for teaching, whether it's writing, speaking, teaching classes, any of that. And that is what brings me joy. Like that's what if you ask me, what could you do every day and not get paid for? It would absolutely be doing this, or it would be doing speaking somewhere. Live is even better for me if I'm up in front of a group of people. So what is that thing that you would do even if you didn't get paid for it? I love that question. So we're going to take a short break. My contact info for you one more time is www.drdianehayden.com. This is the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking to you today about finding your purpose and what makes you passionate in life, what you want to jump out of bed and do every day. And I was talking a little bit about, the year I spent doing a passion quest where I really studied what my strengths were, what I really valued in life, my past experiences, the things I was passionate about, and kind of making, lists of all of those things. And I want to talk before, with the last few minutes that we have today about five other things that I did that I think are really critical in terms of helping people find their purpose and just get their passion back. What are the things that are going to make you jump out of bed every day and you can't wait to start your day. And so one of those things that I did was examining my past. So I listed 3 times in my life when I was excited and passionate about what I was doing, whether it was in my career or my personal life. And I don't think you should necessarily limit it to just, your working life. I think that you can go back to your childhood, any time in life when you were just super passionate about something. And so for me, one of those times was when I was working for a nutritional supplement company. We would have these big conferences and conventions, and I would get to speak in front of 20,000 people, like on a stage. And I'm sure there are people out there who when you hear me say that, you're probably like, what is she nuts? Like, I'd rather have a root canal than speak in front of 20,000 people. But for me, it was exciting. I mean, it was just amazing to be in that energy. I mean, we literally were, in big arenas like the American Airlines Arena in Miami, the Greensboro Coliseum, and we would be there would be 20,000 people there, 20,000 salespeople. And we would be on a stage. It was literally like a rock concert. And the energy was just crazy. I mean, that's what it was for me that's what was really exciting for me, was to be able to be in front of all these people that were so excited to be there. I mean, talk about going from one extreme to the other. My classroom of undergraduates of probably 40 to 50 kids who maybe 5 or 10 wanted to be there, to this arena of literally, 20,000 people all excited to be there and wanting to learn about what you're teaching them about nutritional supplements. It was just crazy. So literally that is something that I would do every day without even getting paid for it. That's what I was so passionate and excited about. And I think that when you go back and think about what those times were, and it doesn't have to be just 3. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there because that's the exercise that I did. I wanted to narrow it to 3. I'm sure it could be any number. You'll start to see what the common themes are. So that's number 2. 1 is examine your past, list the times when you were excited and passionate about what you were doing. And then 2 is investigate the common themes. What commonalities can you draw from the times that you were most passionate in your life? This is, I think this is such a critical exercise to do because you're going to pull out stuff that you had no idea was related. Like I literally, when I wrote down a lot of these different things and I looked at and saw that the common theme was teaching, for some reason that had never really jumped out at me before. And, it was very interesting to me. And one of the other times in my life when I was so excited about what I was doing is I was in college and I was taking jazz dance lessons. Now I've been a dancer most of my life. My mother had me in tap and jazz and whatever from the time I was, I don't know, 4 until probably, well, almost through high school. I might have taken a couple of years off in high school. And then when I went to college, there was a theater program at UConn and I took 4 or 5 different dance classes. Well, we had to basically perform, we had to choreograph our own stuff and, perform it and whatnot. And that was another time when I was just like, oh my God, this is awesome. I love this. I could do it. So it's like I'm seeing, okay, so doing choreography, doing a performance, you're entertaining people, you're making people happy with a performance, it's entertainment. It's kind of the same thing with, speaking on stage to 20,000 people. You can't just get up there and give some boring lecture. You got to be entertaining. I mean, you have to be able to tell stories and inspire people and get them excited. And especially when you're, teaching them about sales and things like that. So that was another commonality for me, was educating, inspiring, entertaining. So it'll be so interesting, I think, for you when you do this exercise to see what those common themes are, and it will absolutely lead you to what your purpose is. So number 3, we've already talked about this, live like there's no tomorrow. Make that list of what you would do if you only had 1 year to live. And you will absolutely see common themes on that list too, for sure. For sure. Definitely. I'm trying to think of, travel. Okay. So not necessarily so much with the dance part of it, but the other thing that I loved about the job that I had for the supplement company was I traveled everywhere, all over the country. We did, big conferences, small conferences, but I was back and forth to the West Coast, to Florida, you name it, Chicago, pretty much big major cities. And on my 1 year to live list is a ton of travel, going to just different places, seeing different places in this country, seeing different places in the world. So that was interesting too, to see that common theme as well. And even I've wrapped that into what I do with the magazine now too. We actually did a big cross country trip. Boy, it's probably been 6 or 7 years now. I need to do another one. But we did a huge cross country trip where I wrote articles on farm to table restaurants and eco-friendly hotels. And we used those articles in our publications. And we actually got comped to stay at probably 40 different places. So that was pretty amazing. And again, just to see like, oh, okay, the travel theme now has come into my own business and in what I do with the magazines. Number 4, explore these passions. So from your 1 year to live list, I want you to take time to actually explore some of these. Yes, that means you have to actually go do it. Now, I understand if you have travel to Africa and do a safari, you're not going to run out and do that tomorrow. But I'm sure there's going to be things on your passion list that you could literally do this weekend or tomorrow. And I want you to start doing that. Take some time to actually do it, feel it, experience it. See if it's something, just because you write it down doesn't always mean that it's something that you really want to do. It might kind of be in your head like, oh, Maybe it was something I thought I wanted to do when I was younger or whatnot. So take the time to figure out what that is. And then number 5, which is probably going to be the most difficult thing for most of us, is spend some time alone. Find some quiet time to think about who you really are. What did you come here to do? What do you represent? How do you want to inspire? How do you want to leave people with? What do you want to create in this world? You need alone time to do that, even if it's only, 15 minutes a day. I actually went on a silent retreat for 3 days. And when I say silent, meaning I went to a retreat center. I literally did not take my phone. I left my phone in the car. My laptop was in the car. And all I had in my room was a notebook. No books, nothing. I literally had spent 3 days with just myself and my thoughts and a notebook and a pencil. And that was it. And just to write down, like, what do I want to do? Like, what am I passionate about? What am I going to do in this lifetime? It's an amazing experience. You will go through probably every single emotion you can imagine. So I would highly encourage it if you've never done something like that before. And in the meantime, even 15 minutes a day. Don't wait until you are actually faced with the reality of it being your last year to do these things. My greatest hope for you is that you will live completely, fearlessly, and passionately. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next week, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.